and welcome back to another episode of the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. I am your host, Dr. Harbir Sayan. Thank you, as always, guys, so much for supporting the podcast, for being here right now to listen. I know there's a million things you could be doing, and the fact that you take time out of your day to do this, to listen or watch, it means so much to me. The podcast has been a little slower lately. For those of our more regular listeners, you probably noticed there's been a bit more of a gap between episodes. I've been trying to take it easy. One thing I don't want to do is create like anxiety for myself around the podcast. I just love doing it so much. So I always want to keep it. So it's something I love doing. So there's a little bit of infrequency lately, but we're getting back onto it. The bi-weekly at the very least, maybe even weekly as we get more into it this fall. But thank you for sticking with it and following along. And as you may notice from my voice, I sound a little bit different today. And that's because I just got back from Vision Expo a couple days ago. And I was saying to Jason, it's just because of the air conditioning in the hotel room. Okay, it's not because I was partying until 3 or 4 in the morning. Although that may have contributed a little bit, but I think it's just the air conditioning. But Vision Expo was an amazing time. Missed you there, Jason. It would have been good to have you out there. It's a fun time for everybody. Have you ever been?
I haven't been to that show. I'd love to see it. There's just so many of them. You can't go to everything.
That's very true. That's true. But that's a big one. It's a nice one to go. It's a good event. So my wonderful guest today is Mr. Jason Carruthers from Windsor, Ontario, who is a Canadian optician and an orthokeratologist. He owns his own practice. And our conversation today is going to be about how to boost your orthokeratology practice, how to maximize, how to bring in new patients, how to elevate all of that in the orthokeratology space. Even if you're brand new to it or if you're just thinking about it, there's going to be some really great tips and advice in this conversation to encourage you to get into it. And if you're an expert, if you've been practicing for a while, I guarantee there's going to be some actionable tips you can take away that's going to help you take your practice to the next level. I fit kind of in the middle. I just got into Ortho-K and I've fit 5 or 6 patients recently, and I absolutely love it. So I cannot wait to get into the meat of this conversation so Jason can help me boost my practice as well. So Jason, thanks so much for being here, man. I really appreciate this.
Oh, absolutely. It's great to be here. We've been talking about this for a while, so when we're both very busy, but it just worked out perfect for today.
It worked out today. The timing finally worked out for us. So Jason, why don't you do this? Give us, if you don't mind, a little bit of a background. Why should I have this conversation with you specifically about Ortho-K and how to, boost somebody's Ortho-K practice?
Yeah. All right. So why would you want to talk to me about Ortho-K? Well, let's see here. I guess let me just start kind of at the beginning here briefly and tell you that, quick recap. As an optician, I had a passion for specialty contact lenses back in the 90s. And when I was coming out of school, and I kind of told my friends, I'm going to specialize in contact lenses. That's what I really want to do. And they all almost kind of laughed at me and they said, no, you can't do that. You have to sell glasses. There's no money in contact lenses. I mean, this is going back to the 90s, early 90s. There's no money in contact lenses. You have to sell glasses. And so I took that advice as fact. And so I was in the eyeglass business for years. And that's kind of how I spent the next, couple decades. And I feel like I kind of wasted some time doing that because, fast forward a bit into the future, now we have a pandemic that's coming around it. In 2019, 2020, this pandemic came out of nowhere and it kind of just shook things up for all of us. I found that, I kind of said life is too short and I want to do what I'm passionate about. It turned out I had high cholesterol, didn't even realize it. And I started to get chest pains. And it turned out that I had a blocked artery, so I had to get a stent put in.
Wow.
That was enough for me to say, it's like, oh man, life is short. I'm going to do what I want to do. To hell with the money. At that point, I was just ready for a change. So I said, I'm going to start learning, some of the stuff that I should have known years before, which is, specialty contact lenses. That's what I really wanted to focus on. I'd fit lenses for 20, 30 years, but I wanted to start just really focusing on that. So I did that. Started to learn Ortho-K and scleral lenses and dive deeper into RGPs and just, starting to get back into the groove of that. Well, I took a job as a rep and I was an Ortho-K rep. My job was to sell Ortho-K to doctors in my territory. I was never a rep before. This is my first sales job, but it seemed like pretty straightforward. Hey, doc, do you want to sell Ortho-K? Yeah, I do. Like, most of the times they said yes. Everybody said yes because it's kind of the thing we're supposed to do. But then I would go back to check on them or call them up a few weeks or a few months later. How you doing? How you doing? Well, I can't seem to find any patients. Just haven't sold any lenses yet. Haven't fit anybody in Ortho-K just yet. What do you mean you haven't found any patients? What's the deal with that? Because, I'm told that half the world is becoming myopic. Once I started to deep dive into specialty contact lenses, I started going to these meetings and they're telling me half the world is becoming myopic. But why can't we find these patients? That was kind of what started me off. Like, it just kind of left like a question in my mind going, man, this doesn't really make any sense. But I didn't get the answer to it. So some of the busy experts that are in my area, I kind of went to them and said, oh, how did, like, these doctors are not finding any patients, like, but these ones are busy. So what can I learn from you guys to bring back to these other guys? Said, oh yeah, I'll tell you the secret to it. It takes 15 or 20 years. So I was like, oh man, that's not how I can't tell my accountants that you got to wait 15 or 20 years to get Ortho-K. But that was their reality. They did start 15 or 20 years ago and they built it up. So it's like, I got nothing now. So once I left there to start my own practice, I just made a personal decision not to sell glasses. I just didn't want to. And so I said, I'm going to focus on contact lenses. I opened a place called Orbit Contact Lens. And I said, I'm going to specialize. And so I learned Ortho-K and scleral lenses, started to put my, my shingle and put my feelers out there and announce to the world that this is what I offer. Well, lo and behold, I couldn't find the patients either. Nobody was beating my door down for Ortho-K or sclerals. It's a cold start. So I had no primary care. I had no patient base to pull from. So I got to find these people, like, what's going on here? I need to pay the rent. I got some staff here. Like, got to get a paycheck. So we got to figure this out here. And I think in that moment, though, like you're asking me maybe for some, some pearls or something unique. I think in that moment, well, I decided in that moment that the patients were out there. Whereas I got the sense from the market and from doctors that, there is no shortcut. There's not a lot of them coming, and that's the way it is. But I was kind of like, my mindset was, wait a second, half the world myopic, 0 patients a month. It didn't make sense. So I was going to find them. All right. So I started advertising. I took out, front page magazine. I went on the radio. I was doing Google ads. I tried YouTube and everything. And man, my credit cards were getting abused. I was racking up my cards. I was spending a small fortune on advertising, and like 99% of it was a complete waste of money. Like, didn't work at all. So I'm like, uh-oh, this is not good, right? Of course, here and there, somebody would make a comment that, hey, I saw your ad or whatever. And so I'd get, the odd person coming in from it. And it was just very rare. It wasn't even profitable enough to pay for the ad. But I kind of started to notice that, certain content wasn't working. So I'd stop that. Certain things were working a little better. So I kind of just was tweaking it and refining it as I went. And sure enough, I started to get maybe 1 or 2 a month, better than 0. So it's kind of like, this is over the course of many months, right? Keep in mind. So I set a goal to do 1 a week. If I can do 1 a week, that would kind of stabilize me. I was doing some sclerals and RGPs and a lot of soft contact lenses in that time. So I said, if I can get 1 a week, that would be about 100,000 in revenue for my business. And it would kind of get me up to the next level. So I put out the content, and I got to that point. It wasn't exactly 1 every week, but it was approximately that on average over time. So I said, okay, let's go to 2 a week now. Can I get to 2 patients a week, right? So I started, at that point, like, I'd given up everything that wasn't working. I stopped YouTube. I stopped Google AdWords. No more radio, no more flyers. And I started to do just these tiny little ads that were bringing, no, I can't say bringing people in, but it was getting more attention. I guess you could say more interaction, more attention. And so I got to 2 a week. And that went on for a while. I was doing, 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 or 4 a week if I was really lucky. And then I said, well, what if I could get to 8 a week? That was my next goal. I thought, well, the reason I picked that number, though, Harbier, is is just because I said, I did the numbers, and it's like, okay, I was charging about 2,000, 2,300. If I could do 8 a week, that's $1 million practice. And OrthoK has a nice profit margin, you know? So I thought, if I didn't even know if it was possible. So can I get to 8 a week? I should be able to. So I just kind of doubled down, and I maxed all the ads I could that I thought would work. And sure enough, it worked. There was a moment where it just surprised me completely, and I did 16 fits in 1 week.
Holy moly.
Yeah, holy moly is exactly what you said. Yeah, so it's like, you know, here I am, you know, scraping the bottom, and suddenly I've got over 30K in 1 week, and, you know, high margin. So I kind of, in that moment, it was like, wow, I felt like I won the lottery or something, you know, like, or I was discovered something that I had been looking for, and I knew it was there, you know,
right.
Even though these gurus told me, no, there's no shortcuts, you got to wait 20 years. And I went looking for anything that could kind of do this for me, but there wasn't anything out there. So I guess long story short, I got 16 cases in 1 week. But then it was great. Okay. I was very happy about that. But then there were a lot of problems that went along with that. So what I mean is, so I was drowning in follow-up. 16 is a lot I was kind of a new fitter too, right? So 16 OrthoK fits in 1 week. It was chaos for a bit. I had to shut the ads off. I couldn't take any more. Small team. We're running out of fluorescein, literally. You know, we're working long hours, and not to mention that the cases didn't always go that well. I mean, you know, OrthoK, it's tricky. Yeah. I tell you, as an optician for almost 30 years, OrthoK is the hardest thing I've ever had to learn. So one example is I had a -4. It's a teenage girl, -4, fit her in OrthoK, came back for her follow-up, and she was a -6.
Oh, that doesn't seem to be the right result.
Oops. So I steepened her corneas by mistake, you know. But of course, you can fix it. So I fixed it, right? But the point is, it was just a lot of new problems that I was dealing with. And I had the sense enough, though, to know that I was very happy to have new problems, because I know the old problems were, you know, can't find the patients, or, you know, even I was in the optical business like years ago. I had my own shop and everything. And it was, even when you're busy, the margins were getting squeezed, and they want to write down the frame model, and they want their PD to go elsewhere. So I was very familiar with that whole world, trying to always fight to fill the doctor's calendar. So I knew that whatever new problems were coming down the pipeline for me, I was happy to solve those problems, as opposed to go back to the same old problems, you know? Okay, so where was the next thing? Well, the next thing was, okay, shut off the ads, you know, just keep plugging away, try to figure out all these problems and stabilize it. So it took me a while. It took me like about a year, but I finally kind of stabilized things to the point where we have it under control. So, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cases a week, maybe at the most. And that's doable for a small team. I tried to you know, expand my staff, you know, find someone else who could fit OrthoK. That is virtually impossible, at least where I am. So it's not easy to just, you can't put an ad in the paper saying hiring an OrthoK fitter, start next week. It's not easy to do. So we had to, you know, start from scratch, and I had to train a couple of people. Bottom line is, like, it's not perfect, but I tell you, I love the business that I have way more than anything I've ever had. You know, it's changed my life. We do a lot of OrthoK. We've got a pretty good team, a good system right now, a lot of happy patients and good reviews. And I've gone way off label with lenses in terms of doing high minus, high cylinders, hyperopes, presbyopes, you know, monovision.
Wow.
So I just put myself out there to make up for lost time, I guess you could say, you know, because I said I was distracted by the other business for a long time. I wanted to really just catch up. So, there's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff in there, Jason. I want to definitely unpack some of that, but like, just to kind of echo or sort of, you know, reiterate some of the things that you said there. I think they're so true. I've been practicing for 14 years now. And so, you know, it was interesting to hear that, like, what you were hearing like 25 or so years back, still people are saying, you know, it's not that much money in contact lens, but in that case, they're usually talking about soft contact lens, right? But still they're saying that there's people who are afraid to get into a new specialty. So here I am 14 years in. Before about 3 months ago, I'd fit exactly 0 Ortho-K in my entire career, not even in school. So I'd like to kind of be that beacon of hope for those people who are further in their career and like, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But look, I'm learning, and you know, there's certainly a case for starting to get into these specialties. But the other thing is, you know, I think some of what you said resonates with people in other specialty areas too. Like there's plenty of people who, you know, you're saying when you were working as a rep, people would buy the fit set, but then they'd say it's, oh, I can't find any patients. But that happens in dry eye, and that happens in other specialties too, right? Where they're like, oh, okay, I have the machine or I have the whatever. Oh, but I'm not getting any dry eye patients, or I'm not getting any uptake. You know, nobody new is coming in the door. So a lot of that is, you know, I think there's so much overlap in our profession or in the industry, regardless of what your specialty is. So even if you're one of those people who's a dry eye person who's listening to this, you know, I think there's a lot to take away from what Jason's saying. As far as the mindset is, the last thing I wanted to say about that was you flipped that switch that there are people out there, right? Because a lot of times what will happen is you get discouraged and you're like, oh, I guess it's just I'm not in the right neighborhood, or I just don't have the right kind of patients and it's not going to work for me. And I know I've been there too. But it seems like people are finding me now, you know, even though I haven't done a ton, but I have had people just walk in the door. They might be a brand new patient. And, you know, they may not have even come to me for Ortho-K, but I'll propose it. And they're taking me up on it, when in the past, I felt like everybody was declining it. So there's something that starts to happen when you kind of flip that switch in your mind, for sure. And even in the dry eye space, so many people are like, oh yeah, it just takes time. It'll take 10 years, 15 years. But there may not be exactly a shortcut, but there is a way to speed that up. And that's what I want to get into today with you. So what can you share with us as maybe some steps, and we'll take our time. You know, you don't have to completely list them out 1, 2, 3, but let's start kind of ground level. Maybe you got someone like me who's early stages, or someone like where you were in the beginning when you first opened your shop. You know, what kind of ads or things would you say that really did stick that we could start to get into in the short term? Now, actually, before we start this, let's preface all of this with Jason obviously is an expert in the space as far as his clinical ability to fit. We're not really going to talk about clinical fitting. We're going to talk more about the business side, the building the practice, the marketing more maybe than anything else. And Jason actually has a course on this. And so I'm excited that at some point soon, I'm going to be taking this course myself, and I want to come around back to everybody and share my insight. But we're going to make sure we share the information. So after you're done listening to this, you can go find Jason and take that course and learn even more. So let's start with that, Jason. What's sort of some early stages of actionable advice you can give?
Yeah. Okay. So for someone who's, say, practicing traditional optometry or maybe specialty in a different area, wants to increase Ortho-K, then I guess the first thing I would say is to realize the potential size of the market. I think sometimes we maybe just don't try anything because, or maybe we've tried 1 or 2 things and it didn't work, so therefore maybe it isn't possible. I think the first big thing for me was believing that there was a huge market out there for Ortho-K, and I think I've proven that there is. So I'll give you the kind of what to do, but just let me say that 78% of the U.S. population is adults, and the rest is children. So one of the points I wanted to bring up is, you know, in this business, and you go to a conference, you go to myopia, events, and it's all about the children. And I agree with that. Okay, I'm on board with helping children. I'll do whatever it takes to help children. I got 4 kids of my own, and man, you work hard for kids, right? But would we ever say we're not selling glasses to adults? We're not performing eye exams on adults? We would never say that. And so from a business standpoint, I just wonder, why is that? Why does it seem like we are overlooking adults when it comes to Ortho-K? Why do we not either want to help? I don't think it's a case that we don't want to help them. I think that we assume that just not suitable to adults. And why is that? I've asked about that.
Yeah.
Well,
What
maybe
answer have
adults
you
are,
gotten? Can I give you my answer to that question? But
yeah.
I'd like to hear if you have or maybe I'll give you my answer. You can tell me if this is a way. So again, I'm brand new to it, relatively new to it, but I've essentially been told like you can't really fit adults. It's really primarily just for kids. And when you go to lectures on it, nobody talks about fitting adults. And I asked some of my friends who are more into Ortho-K who do fit adults. And they're happy to do it as well. So they're more on your wavelength here. But they have told me the big caveat is that they say that there's a lot of I don't know if the right term is like distortion, peripheral distortion, or something like that. So but I don't exclude adults when I'm presenting the option. But I will tell you, as a new fitter, I'm extremely cautious. So I have not fit an adult yet. But it seems like everybody sort of discourages that from day one.
Well, yeah. The number one answer I think I've gotten is that adults are pickier with their vision compared to a kid. So you've got a 10-year-old kid who's not working full time, not driving a car, you know.
Yep.
But I just reply, yes, adults are pickier. They're also pickier about their glasses. They're also pickier about their contact lenses, about their multifocals. So what? That's just the way it goes, right? It doesn't mean that Ortho-K is for every adult. Certainly not. But I can tell you countless stories of patients who are so happy with being introduced to Ortho-K. One comment I've heard several times, which stuck in my brain, is, "Oh, I've been going to my doctor for 20 years, and every year he tells me I'm a great candidate for LASIK. It's almost like he's trying to convince me to get LASIK. I don't understand why. I don't want LASIK. But why has he never told me I'm a great candidate for Ortho-K?"
Yeah.
I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer for you there, you know?
So two things, Jace. One is, I think this is the moment where people who are listening, who are like me, who are like, feel like we've been discouraged to fit adults. Hopefully you will be the guy, you'll be that guiding light for us now to start to fit some of these adults. If you give us, some anecdotes or success stories that you've had, I think that'll help us. But that, it's funny. Why would you push LASIK over Ortho-K is a very good question. I think the fact is that many of us are scared to or not trained in Ortho-K. Majority of us are not, right? So I think it's a lot easier for me to send you off to somebody to go get something done than it is for me to do a treatment or fitting on something that I'm not very comfortable with. But to the point of your pickiness as well, you know what? I just recently, so I fit a fair amount of the myopia glasses, right? The couple different brands that are out there, and I fit most of that quite frequently for kids as well. And I've never had any issues with kids up until about age 12. I fit so many, and I don't think I've had one non-adapt. I fit a 17-year-old about 2 weeks ago, and I got a call like 2 days after they picked up the glasses saying, "I can't wear these." So, and it's describing the peripheral blur and things like that. I said, a lot of this it's just normal with the lens, but that's the difference. She just started university. She's 18 years old. She just started university. She's like, "I can't sit in a big lecture hall at UBC and wear these glasses." So there's certainly a factor of that pickiness, and maybe there's some patient selection criteria that you might be able to tell us that may help us succeed there as well.
Yeah, okay. I've heard that before. I've had one or two patients come in saying they've already tried the glasses and couldn't adapt them, so they were inquiring about Ortho-K. I can give you countless stories of adults. One lady stands out to me. She's in her late 50s, high minus. She was about a -7, -8, something like that. And I asked her, just out of curiosity, how old were you when you first started wearing glasses? And she said, "Oh man," she thought about it. And she said, I think she said 6 or 7 years old or something.
Sure.
And she got really quiet, and I started to see like she's a little bit upset or sad or something. And she's like a tear coming to her eyes. What's the matter? I was just thinking, like, I've been wearing glasses my whole life. I was told I couldn't get LASIK. I was bullied as a kid for 4 eyes. She was a little heavy. Yeah. And she said, "Now you're telling me I can correct my vision with Ortho-K. It's hard to believe it. I didn't know about this, And so she was very happy to be corrected in Ortho-K. I could tell you, had a realtor / actor who had LASIK, 10, 20 years ago. It regressed. He hates wearing it. He came in without wearing glasses. He's about a -2 OU distance. Doesn't wear the glasses unless he really has to not crash his car. So, of course, we corrected one eye, and he was post-LASIK. Very happy, super happy with it. I'll give you another one.
Monovision fit. How old was he?
40s. I want to say mid to late
So he's
40s.
presbyopic, so it made sense to keep one eye nearsighted. That's amazing. How did he adapt to that? He did pretty well.
Very easily, very easily. It was like too
Never would have
easy
thought.
for me.
That's amazing.
So post LASIK cases, I think there can be other challenges, but in this case, it worked well. Another one I wanted to point out with you is some low-hanging fruit to me would be this. A patient who's, let's say, later in life, let's say 40s or 50s, who had good vision their whole lives, never wore glasses before, never worn them, and then suddenly now they're wearing progressives or reading glasses. They hate their glasses. Those people just hate their glasses. That's you?
Yeah, well, I'm getting there. I'm not quite that old yet, but I'm the guy who's never needed glasses my whole life. And now I'm like, oh, hang on, I got to move this thing away a little bit. So tell me, how can we help that patient?
How you can help that patient is they're usually not great candidates for LASIK, or they don't want LASIK surgery, but they hate progressive glasses. They hate readers, dollar store readers. They probably don't want to wear contact lenses either, and multifocal contact lenses will probably have some problems. So I've had pretty good success with those patients in Ortho-K because it seems to be just the best combination of, keeping their youth, not having to wear glasses, not having to wear contacts during the daytime, and no surgery. So they seem to really like it. Hyperopia is very possible up to a certain range with Ortho-K.
Really?
In presby, I mean, you're steepening the central. I discovered it by accident. Like I steepened it by accident. So it's like, let me try to do this for real.
That's incredible. So can we stop on that for just a second? Excuse me. You said you did it by accident, but is that something that some Ortho-K fitters are doing intentionally? And are there any negative consequences of potentially steepening somebody's cornea for some years while they, as hyperopes?
I mean, I'm not aware of any long-term negative side effects or even short-term. It seems to be pretty straightforward. As a matter of fact, I find that fitting hyperopia, although it's a tighter range, you can't go up to +12 or anything like that. It's a smaller range, but the fit is pretty much the same on everybody. You're just lowering the return zone and steepening the base curve instead of flattening it. So it's pretty simple. Patients tend to like it, and it starts gradually improving their near vision. Especially, let's say if you're a +1 in the distance with a plus 150 add. They're impressed by that because not only the distance is corrected, but then the near starts to come in as well. They're happy with it.
Interesting.
I'm just saying, it's not for everybody. Nothing is.
Yeah, but that's really cool. So I think that number one right there, what you're suggesting there is, the fact that if we start to think about adults as potential patients, all of a sudden we've dramatically increased our the candidates that we could potentially have come into our office. You're not having just such a narrow band or narrow, range of patients. So I imagine that was a big factor as far as how many new patients you're starting to book in, because it's not just kids anymore. So let's say, okay, I'm in my exam room. And let's say, I'm comfortable kind of reaching up to like a 30-year-old who's, and I got my range of kind of low to mid myopes and that kind of thing. I'm trying to keep it narrow so I don't have too many crazy complicated cases. And I want to have 1 a week or something, 2 a week. What's kind of like the next step? All right, I've switched my mindset. Not only do I believe that there's patients out there, I now believe I could fit adults as well as kids. What would you say is the next thing to think about?
So the next thing I think about is probably logistics, just in the sense that, if someone's coming into your office for a routine exam and they're maybe thinking about buying new glasses, and if you kind of surprise them with this thing, hey, let me tell you about Ortho-K, you don't need glasses anymore. It's kind of like a big surprise. They're not really ready for it. They're not primed. It's going to be tough to make a decision that quickly.
Yeah.
So it helps to kind of get them primed before coming in.
Okay.
So that obviously marketing, now we're talking about marketing and advertising.
Yeah, sure. So in that case, so let's say, okay, are we talking specifically now, or maybe there's two different paths we can go down here. Are we talking, let's say I have a patient booked in already. There may be even an existing patient. Now, I've only recently started having like proper Ortho-K conversations with parents. I used to always mention it. in my myopia discussion, but I'd say we don't do OrthoK. I can refer you. So I might only give a certain level of information, but now because I fit someone, I have experience, I can have a more detailed conversation. So let's say I have a kid coming back in, low myope, and now I'm like really confident offering that. Should I be somehow giving that person information before they come in? Or are we talking about somebody that we've only initially connected with through marketing? Because then that will warm them up, right? Before if they've seen the ads online, they're coming to me because they've seen I do OrthoK. That person's going to be a little bit warmed up, a little bit primed, versus somebody who hasn't seen my advertising, is just come in for an eye exam. Is there some way for the person who hasn't seen my advertising already to prime them somehow before their appointment? Or is that not the same conversation?
No, it's certainly doable. You can prime anyone for it. I think the biggest difference with OrthoK. So let's talk about marketing just for a quick second to answer this.
Yeah.
You open the door to your office and walk down the street and just pick any random person and say, have you ever heard of eyeglasses before or laser surgery? I mean, they're going to laugh, right? It's silly. Yeah. What do you mean? But ask that same person, have you ever heard of wearing a retainer on your eyeballs while you're sleeping and it corrects your vision, kind of like dental stuff? They've never heard that before. Most people have no clue that even exists. So it's kind of good and bad. It's bad in the sense that nobody's asking about it, but it's good in the sense that they're waiting for someone to tell them about that. And now here's the other thing about advertising, which I've learned. Let's say you want to acquire an eyeglass or a primary care patient into your practice. You put an ad out there. You advertise. Wherever you advertise, let's say it's a billboard or a magazine or Facebook or YouTube, no matter where you're putting that ad, your message is going to be something like this. Hey, this is Dr. So-and-so. We offer comprehensive exams and excellent quality glasses. Maybe they're lower price or better quality or something along those lines. Free parking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No matter how, even if you dress that message up and get really fancy and you dance on TikTok or you're doing a comedian kind of a thing, right? Yeah. Doesn't matter how you dress up that message. It's still the same message. Come here, get an eye exam, and buy glasses. The problem with that is that everyone on the planet has heard that message over and over and over and over again their whole lives. And everybody knows 10 other eye doctors, and they know 10 optical stores and lens crafters and Walmart and online. So the problem with the message is that it's not new. It's not new information. They've already heard it. So essentially what we're saying is, hey, don't buy those glasses over here. Come over here. Don't get your eye exam over there. Come over here for your eye exam. It's kind of a sales pitch at its core, right? But when you say something that is new information, okay, so have you ever thought of correcting your vision without surgery? How would you like to be able to see without glasses and surgery, without contacts? It's going to stop your myopia from progressing, and it's reversible. Now, if you just simply change your message from one to the other, just by doing that and nothing else, now you're not giving a sales pitch anymore. Now this is news. This is new information. And when you tell the news, it's a lot more credible, So if just like, the point of this podcast is maybe because I'm bringing something new to the table with you, right? Yeah. If I was telling you about the same old stuff and how to fit soft contact lenses, you'd probably not want to have me on this podcast, right?
I'd still love to have you on, Jason. You're a nice guy. We get along, but absolutely, you're right. You're 100% right. I think I remember either reading or hearing about you saying this, or hearing you say that optometry, or maybe eye care more broadly, has a branding problem. Did you say that? Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
All right. Tell me. So this sounds like kind of the same thing, right? We are just advertising. We're kind of all doing the same thing. We've all branded ourselves the same way, and people are numb to that message now. We got to brand ourselves differently.
Well, yeah, and don't get me wrong. It's not that there's anything wrong with optometry or primary care. I mean, look, if you have a traditional, and I remember the first guy who ever checked my eyes, Ben Magder, he didn't even call himself a doctor. He answered his own phone. I'd call him up, Magder here. That's how he answered the phone. And he was a little room by himself. What I'm saying here is that if you're practicing traditional eye care and optometry and it's going well for you, then by all means, hallelujah. I applaud and I'm happy with that. But what I've noticed, especially after being a rep in the field and talking to a couple hundred doctors about their businesses, is there are some doctors who are trying to shift away from primary care for various reasons. The margin's getting squeezed. Okay. The eyeglass business is being fought. So I'm saying only if you're trying to get into specialty care, that's when branding might become an issue. Because if your if your office is, you know, ABC optometry and glasses, but you're trying to build a dry eye practice, or maybe an aesthetics practice, or a myopia practice, or irregular cornea practice, then you might want to reconsider your branding, your messaging, maybe even the name of the practice. That was the whole point of my article.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's a good article. I saw you had a license plate that said Ortho-K on it. Do you actually have a license plate?
I do.
Is it like on your car, or is it more just for show?
Oh,
let's look at that. Look at that. This is a man who's committed. Show us again, would you? Show us one more time. And you got to send me a picture of you holding that. That's going to be the cover art for the episode. There we go. Look at that. I'm gonna actually wait. Keep it there. I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to put this on Instagram one more time. There we go. Just so people know what this conversation's about. Okay. Thanks, Jason. All right. But you're absolutely right. All of that's so important. So important to kind of consider how we're branding ourselves, how people are perceiving us. I think it's vital. Honestly, I'll use I think necessary for us as optometrists to kind of specialize in some way, even if you don't become a specialty only clinic, but to offer these various forms of specialty care. And it takes work, it takes effort. But if we want to stick to primary care, and unless you already have like a booming practice, if anybody's sort of more in the middle of the road, the middle of the bell curve, it's going to be tricky, because we have so many other disruptors and players in the market who are trying to eat up that middle of the bell curve and eat up those margins. And so once we start offering specialty care, we kind of buffer ourselves or protect ourselves from these disruptions and these kind of bottom feeding entities that are going to start to drag away some of our patients. So I really appreciate this. And hopefully this is going to help encourage some of our friends out there to get a bit more. And I don't think you have to, you just said a couple numbers in the beginning. I don't think it's something you have to do as a full-on specialty, but like if you fit one a week, you said that's pretty much $100K. Depending on what you charge each time here. Who doesn't want to boost their revenue by $100K a year? And I was talking to a few friends while I was in an expo. Really, I was being told, because as I'm starting out, I'm undercharging, and I've been told this a lot. And just to speak very plainly, we're not supposed to be price fixing. It's just sharing information. Right now I'm charging roughly $2,000 a fit. I got to bump that up for sure. If you're in the $2,500 to $3,000 range, you don't even have to do one a week to hit 100K, right? You're a little under that. So if you're getting to 1 or 2 a week, you're really boosting your revenue quite a bit, and not by adding too much more effort to your kind of weekly practice. So anyways, I think it's very important. Let's talk a little bit more about maybe if somebody's been into it a little bit longer and wants to grow their practice a little bit more. So beyond where I am, somebody who's consistently fitting maybe one a week and wants to do a lot more or bump that up. What suggestions would you have from there?
Yeah, so in that case, it's going to be a little bit easier for someone who's already got momentum just to move faster and do more. So that's a great thing. If you're already doing a 1 or 2 a week or something, then that's a great place to be at, because now you've got the hard part is over with. So again, you kind of have a choice at that point. I mean, if you want to just help children only, if you're just doing myopia control and that's the only reason you're doing Ortho-K, and that's fine, and that's a great way to go. But it does come down to you have to put the message out there. So what I find is, like, let's say you can get, I want to use the word lucky, but it's not real luck. But let's just say you're lucky enough to have referrals coming in. Okay, so other eye doctors or surgeons or family doctors, pediatricians, whoever it is, if they're referring cases to you, then that's great. Okay, but it's tough to control that, So if you want to have a little more control over your numbers and be able to scale it a little bit quicker, then you're going to have to put out some type of a content out there, because again, people don't know about this, and parents don't know about it. Children don't know about it. So now we're going to have to talk a little bit about content and advertising and that sort of thing. And nobody really wants to do that, I understand. And I don't recommend actually that doctors become marketing experts. It's really a whole, there's a funny question that I heard, which is that why don't they teach a few business classes in optometry school? Well, for the same reason they don't teach a few optometry classes in business school. There's just too much on both sides, right? And so if you just dabble a tiny bit and try a couple ads here and there, it's probably not going to work out too well. Sure. But having said that, let's say you're willing to go the distance, right? First of all, change your message, put out different content. So start talking about OrthoK in your messaging and your advertising. But now here's the other side of it, that I don't know if you ever heard this wisdom in healthcare. Don't sell prevention. Prevention doesn't sell. You know, so like if you're selling something that's going to prevent a problem, say pre-diabetes, people don't want to buy pre-diabetes products. They want to wait until their feet are turning blue and they want to fix that, you know. Yeah. This is what I was
a little morbid, but I get it.
It's morbid, but that, I didn't make that up. That was told to me by a practitioner. Okay. The other thing is, I'll give another analogy. My wife and I were involved in some marriage, you know, training in the past, and we kind of volunteered to help couples. And it's like, how would you like to go to marriage counseling to keep your marriage in good shape? Most people will never do that in a million years. You don't go to marriage counseling until you got like a serious problem, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's just human nature. I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about prevention, but I'm just saying human nature, it's very difficult. So if our message is, you know, hey, myopia can cause eye diseases later, much later in life. Like I'm just saying, it's a heavy lift to make the public accept. And I think, just my opinion here, okay, I might go out on a limb here, but the message, it's important. And I'm not saying stop this message, but I'm saying it needs more. So if the only message we're putting out there is, you know, higher myopia, you know, 37% chance or 82% chance of higher complications and disease, I'm going to say like, it's not urgent enough for people to take action on that. So I'm saying keep that message out there, but let's build on that message. So if you want to get people in quickly, you want to focus on what they're more concerned about and what they really care about, and it's more tangible to them. So a cure as opposed to prevention. So I would be putting out in your message more about practical things that you can see today, such as, you know, an advantage for your kids to be able to see better. You know, buying glasses every year. You're spending a lot of money buying glasses every year for your kids because their vision's getting worse. Yeah, yeah. You know, the thicker glasses means blurry vision. You know, it affects sports. Those types of messages are going to have a better chance of getting someone to take action and inquiring about more, as opposed to talking about, you know, retinal detachment or anything like that. That's just my opinion. That's
actually that's a good point. Again, yeah, I know some of the other messaging is maybe, I won't say controversial, but it might rub people a little bit the wrong way but you're absolutely right, though. It's true. And we could look at that in any health perspective. You know, why do people not really work out regularly or eat healthy food regularly? Because the impact is not immediate. It's long-term, and the amount of effort that you got to put in, you know, to eat well and exercise, you don't see an immediate return on it. So that's why a lot of people don't do it. Right. So I think that's a really good point. Your messaging, we do want to put out that preventative message, because that's a big goal for optometry in general. But what other messaging can we put in there that will add a little bit of urgency to the whole conversation? You know, free your child of the glasses and give them more freedom for swimming. Swimming's a big one, I'm finding, where OrthoK is coming in as super helpful. A lot of the kids whose parents are more interested are swimmers. So, you know, find ways to have that conversation that's going to resonate. But to transition and create my own little segue here, let's talk about sports and that kind of thing. Have you connected with, as part of your marketing strategy, have you done any community outreach? Have you done any talking to sports teams and things like that? Has that been a big part of what you've done, or do you find that would be helpful?
No, I really haven't gotten into that, just because of maybe from a logistical standpoint that, arranging these things and driving out there. I just find that the return on my time, it may or may not be worth it. I'm just not sure. I've kind of discovered one thing that is working, so I'm just going to stick with that for now. I'm not saying that couldn't work, right? Everything you do is always beneficial. The more you do, the better. There's only so many hours in the day. That's all. Yeah.
So with the marketing, let's talk about your course then. Like what would people learn? Like if you could give like some pretty specific details, a couple of sentences, what would people learn from the course if they were to sign up and go through the full program?
Well, I mean, we've already covered a lot of it, to be honest. I mean, I put out there, again, there's like strategy and then there's tactics, right? So my goal is just to really reveal everything and get this content out there because, if I just say, well, you should do this, this, and this, step 1, 2, 3, it's not as helpful as giving the whole picture, right? And so this is where my content, I'm always I'm trying to put out as much as I can. I don't really have any paid courses. That's not what I'm looking for. I put out content because of the fact that doctors need to know like what I've been through and what has worked and what has not worked. If they don't see the whole picture, or just let me switch that around, say when they do see the whole picture, then it all makes sense, So those are kind of the big things, like looking at considering to help adults, widening the type of case that you can accept, increasing the pool of potential candidates by accepting more types of cases. That's going to help, first of all. Number 2, as I already said, change the messaging in your marketing. Talking about OrthoK is usually going to be something new, and it's going to be a little more interesting than the same old message. A free consultation is something else I've learned that works well. I did a year at a LASIK center, and I noticed right away that it was a different business model than what I was used to. Because in traditional eye care, I don't think we have any free consultations. But when I was at the LASIK center, we had free consultations all week long, and the surgeon worked Thursday and Friday. He treated about 25 patients a day, and so it's a huge moneymaker. You're getting people in for a consultation to learn more and to see the whole big picture. So I do that with OrthoK, and that seems to work very well.
So those free consultations, that's interesting because I've heard something about this from another OrthoK person. Are they online consultations? Are they in-person consultations? What information do you need to have that consultation, like a successful one?
So I'll tell you why I would never do an online consultation. And I hear this a lot. This question has been asked to me many, many times already by doctors. And here's my answer. I personally will never do an online consultation because, first of all, what information do you have about that patient when you're doing the consultation? Do you have their topographies? Do you have their RX? Have you examined the health of their eyes, dry eye test? Have you examined any of that stuff? Probably not. In the consultation, so what happens is the topic of discussion in a virtual conversation is now reversed. The patient's just going to ask you a bunch of questions. They're going to say, so you're going to say, hey, welcome to here. I'm nice to meet you. Here's the consultation. I want to tell you about OrthoK. So now we're either going to talk about OrthoK or they're going to ask us questions about OrthoK, and we're putting the solution ahead of the problem again. And so you wouldn't recommend cataract extraction surgery or even talk about it to a patient unless you examine their eyes and determine that they're suitable and they should have cataract surgery, right? It's the same with OrthoK. If we start talking about OrthoK before we even know if they're a candidate, then we're essentially just going to fill in a couple of the blanks for them. They're going to say, how much is it? And is it permanent? That's all I really care. If it's $2,000 and it's not permanent, then I'm not interested. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the whole picture.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, Jason, I got one more big question for you before we end, which is kind of a common through line question that I ask most of my guests who come on the podcast. But before we get to that, I want to ask you, where can people find you? Where can they learn more? You know, the webinar, you do all of that kind of stuff. Where should they go for that?
You can go to orthoklaunch.com, and there is a link on there that you can sign up for the free. I do a couple things. I have a webinar that I run periodically. There's one coming up soon. And I also do like individual Zoom sessions. So if you want to ask me personalized questions, if you want help with your practice, we can jump on a Zoom and we'll do it that way. So
That's
OrthoK
amazing.
launch.
Amazing. OrthoKlaunch.com. How about you personally? If somebody wanted to connect with you online, Instagram, something else?
Yeah. Optician Jason
Optician,
on Instagram.
Instagram at Optician Jason. All right. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Jason. You know, there's been so much great information here. I want to have you back on because I want to do a little more digging. I want to get a bit more experience. I want to try to build my practice up. And when I feel like I've gotten to maybe 1 a week, or even close to that, you know, 3 a month, something along those lines, then I'm gonna have you back on, because then I want to tell you how I got there, and then we'll share some more information.
Let's do
so
it.
Here's the big question. I'm gonna give you a minute if you need a minute to think about it. But I have a new segment, relatively new segment, that I'm really forcing this down people's throats right now, because anybody who's been listening to the podcast for regularly for a while knows I've been trying to make this a thing. I don't know how much people love it, but I enjoy having this little segment. It's called You're Welcome. So have you watched the movie Moana? You have kids. Have you seen the movie Moana? Your kids are older.
I think so. That's an older movie, isn't it?
It's a Disney movie. I don't know, in the last like 5-6 years, maybe something like that.
I think I've seen every Disney movie, but anyways, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, let me give you a little context, and I think it'll help you answer the question. So in the movie, there's a character called Maui who's like this godlike figure. He has special powers, and he's very egotistical, and he's singing a song saying, well, you're welcome for all these amazing things I've done for you. You're welcome. You're welcome. So this is an opportunity for you to share some really impactful, profound piece of advice that's going to help me. It's going to help the audience. It could be a powerful quote. It could be some really actionable piece of information. Either way, when you're done, I'm going to feel so great and so grateful that I'm going to say thank you, and you'll say, you're welcome. So let's do You're Welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Jason, what powerful piece of information can you share with us today?
Jeez, it's kind of, I'm torn between two.
Give them both. That's fine.
All right. So the first one is, maybe it's cliche, follow your passion. Okay. I'll preface that just by saying that, or clarify, passion alone is not enough. But again, I had passion for specialty contact lenses years ago, and I didn't pursue it. I regretted that. So if you have a passion for a certain area of eye care, then go all in on that. And that's done well for me. The second would be when it comes to business. So this would be a business advice. New problems are always better than old problems. If you have it's the same old problems in your business year after year after year after year, it means you're not changing, and you got to change. Start looking for new problems. I think one of the things I see is that sometimes we will try something new. So for example, I put an ad out there for OrthoK and it didn't work, so I stopped. Okay. So it's like, do new things, get new problems, and solve the new problems. And that'll help your business grow much, much faster.
That's amazing advice. That's amazing advice. And to that, Jason, I say thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Got it. Okay. Slowly, it's catching on. All right. Thanks, Jason. Awesome. This has been amazing, man. It's been amazing. I think there's a lot of great information in here. We'll definitely stay in touch. We're going to do more of this down the road, and I'm excited to continue to grow my OrthoK practice. You know, to all my friends out there who are looking to specialize in something, you know, whatever it is, like Jason said, find what you're passionate about and really dig into it. I found this. I honestly was against OrthoK until very recently, for various reasons. I can go into that conversation some other time. But, you know, speaking with some of my amazing friends who are doing such amazing things and people I really trust in the industry, they were so passionate about OrthoK. I was like, I can't ignore this for my entire career. And for the last few months, as I've been digging in, I've really been loving it. So I encourage you out there, if you're on the fence, look Jason up, go to orthoklaunch.com. You know, he'll help you get started. And then I want to hear your stories. Text me, message me on Instagram. Tell me how your OrthoK life has been growing and succeeding. Thanks again, Jason. Thanks for taking the time, man.
Hey, Dr. Harbier, it's been great being with you. Thanks for having me on your podcast, and I look forward to talking to you.
That's my pleasure, man. And thank you to everybody again for watching and listening to the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. I'll see you guys in the next episode, hopefully with a better voice.